Well, welcome back. This is a video I've been wanting to make for a long time, and it's one of the things I really like talking about. This is vintage pearl drums, and these are some of the drum sets that I have refurbished over time, and I'm really proud of how these came out. And again, it's one of those things when you start looking around at what you do, you go like, is this a sickness, an obsession, or is this reasonable? Yeah, it does take up a lot of room, and unlike guitar players can have 10 or 12 guitars, and really that's not that big a deal. But if you have 4 drum sets, it takes up a lot. And remember, if your drums aren't taller than you are stacked up, you need more drums. So hang on, and let's get into this. Now, you'll see some things with people who collect things, certain obsessions maybe, or certain things that draw us in. But there is a group out there with drummers who like vintage pearl drums, and there's a reason for that. If I were to add to my collection here, there are some other drums that I would get that aren't pearl. It would be like the Tama Art Star Cordia kit. Number 1 would be the Sonar Rosewood kit and the Sonar Rosewood Phonic kit. And then probably right up there would be the stainless steel Ludwig. Those are all great sets. Now, I'm not trying to say that these are the best sets in the world, but they're pretty good. And if you look at some of these, they've lasted a long time. My first drum set, what got me into this pearl craziness, was a Jazz Rock Pro. And I ordered that when I was a sophomore in high school, and I worked at Stuckey's every night after school, weekends, and I also threw papers, and that's how I paid for my first drum set. And that thing held me along. It saw me through quite a bit. I had that from '76 until probably about '83, and I did something stupid with it. It was a white leatherette covering. And boy, I'd like to find another set like that and renovate it up a little bit. But anyway, my next set was actually this one here. I bought this in 1984, and I played through 2 bands on this. We drug it through a lot of bars and festivals and stages and rain and bar fights and everything else. And what goes along with this is a maple shell. And this particular maple shell was before they started the X series, really, in pearl. And right behind me here, if you look at this particular set here, this is the original set. These are a 14, 15, and an 18 floor tom and a 24-inch bass drum. Now, these were the oversized sets, and the reason I bought it was because, well, Tommy Bolton, the Black Frost in Manhattan, had one, and that's what that was a pretty big influence right there. The drummers professionally who basically really got me into pearls, of course, Peter Criss with Kiss, big huge set, concert toms. Also Gil Moore, Triumph, and he didn't play pearl, but he played a pretty good set, Thomas. And I think he switched to Drum Workshop. And that was, of course, Neil Peart, who recently passed away here from illness. But anyway, these kits are all pretty neat. But the one thing is they are very durable. And they're very durable with the way Pearl made their shells. You can look on my YouTube channel here and go to the rock and roll playlist. And you can see me actually playing these in 1987. And I mean, I'm using Quantum 3000 Regal tips and just laying the wood to it on a song called China Grove, and it was a lot of fun to play. But anyway, these things held up for a long time, and it was one of my first restorations. This particular kit was part of a larger kit that I turned into a double bass. I ended up buying a 22-inch MLX bass drum, and then also an MLX 9x13, and that was my kit. It was 3 racks on the top, 13, 14, and 15, a 22 and a 24-inch bass, and an 18-inch floor. And the rest was basic cymbals and good snares. Had a Sonar Phonic 12-ply rosewood snare. You can see that in one of my other videos. And then also the maple snare that came with this one, 6.5 by 14. And they were durable. And we were actually in a place in, I think it was Falls City, Nebraska. I was playing with a band called Crosswind. And we actually got in there, and I mean, it was brutally cold. It's one of those those northern kind of blizzards, and everything was below 20. It was just cold. And this is a lacquer set, and we took the cold drum case, which was a huge stage thing we built, and took it in. I took my drums out, and my entire lacquer cracked. I was heartbroken. I was just like, oh my gosh. And these things have been with me through the flood of '93. They were in my mobile home when it was flooded. I did get these out before they got trashed, and that was a good thing. But in about 2006, 2007, the stuff was flaking off, so I really had to start doing this. So the entire kit is actually a double bass kit. It goes from 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 18 floors, and of course the two kicks. And I sanded these off. I got new heavy-duty maple rings on the front, the hoops, and they sound great. And I was really pleased with how they came out. So this was my first refurb. I really didn't want to lose my kit. This thing had been with me for, 3 decades, and I really wanted to get it back, and it is now back in playing shape. Since then, I've now split this up. There's actually another kit I have at another undisclosed location that is the rest of the drums, and I've split them up. As I said, I made 2 kits. So this is a different kind of kit. This is a 24-inch bass with a 8, 10, 13, and a 15, and an 18. So it's got a larger spread on the toms, and I'm very interested in seeing how that has an effect on the tone. But you can't go wrong with maple shells. And this got me into that. That was the next one I did. This particular one here was the Bubinga kit, and this took a lot of work. What's so incredible about the Bubinga kit? Well, it's a 24 by 16 bass. And I really haven't got this fixed up. You notice I've got kick ports and everything. I think the kick ports are a great addition to the music that I play, the sound I'm looking for. Like, again, rock. I need to get a kick port in this one. But before I put a kick port in that one, I need to get maple rims for that. It really opens up the low end of this. And with the 2-inch, I'm not a fan of the big long bass drums. I'm really becoming more and more happier with the low end that comes off of your typical 14-inch kicks. I like 24s, of course, but these 22s, these are different ones here. We'll get to those in a bit. But if you look here, these are all maple shells. These are maple shells. So you can turn it around. These are all maple. So I went from 10, 12, 13, 14, and then 16 and 18 floors. Again, I like a target-rich environment. I just have fun playing that, and I do like the music that utilizes it. I'm not a 4-piece player, never have been, and probably never will be. But anyway, the problems with the power toms, again, these are, instead of having a normal 8 by 12, you now have 10 by 12, 11 by 13, 12 by 14. You have much more extension. Now, this 14 isn't as hard to tune, but these two here are a nightmare. The ones there are a little bit easier to tune. Now, this is kind of unique, and this is the first one I really put a lot of time in. This took me probably 6 months from the time I decided to do this. This is actually Bubinga mahogany veneer, and I ordered it. The veneer almost cost more than most of the toms. I got the power toms all together in one set, and then I purchased that one. And then I got the 16 and the 18 on their own, and then added that one. But these are all maple shells, and the way I put the veneer on there, I actually used a thermoset resin that you basically iron on. So you lay out all your veneers, how you're going to lay them out on for the size, the thickness, and then how long you're going to have it. You try to minimize seams or hide seams on the places like on the bottom where you would have lugs going across, because that kind of minimizes that. But then when you get everything lined up, you just iron it on. It's kind of, it's weird. And it's weird, but it's a very effective way to do it when you're doing this by yourself. And then that is covered by 7 layers of lacquer. So lacquer's on all these. Lacquer's a very hard finish, and it's less likely to have problems like a polyurethane. And I don't think it dampens things as much as it acts more like a resin. So it's going to be a hard covering as opposed to a dampening. So it focuses it. Now also on these, I did something people don't like. I finished the inside too with just a sanding sealer and 1 coat of lacquer. I didn't put on all the pretty lacquer like I usually do on the outside, but I think it brightens up the tone a little bit more. As I said, I look at drums different than most modern day people. And it's kind of funny, you know, most modern day people, oh, I like things that resonate. Well, okay, but what they do is they take all your stuff into Pro Tools, and then they take out your sound and they put in some samples. So, well, what are we really arguing about? I like the sound and the voices that come out of these. This is a little harder to voice. Again, my go-to is always going to be my maples. So those are 2, and again, this one was the most rewarding. This one I had to do because I didn't want to lose I couldn't lose my one-time all favorites, the ones that's been by my side in most of the bands I've been in. This particular one was just, as I said, very rewarding to do, and it was really fun to do it and to see that I could actually do that. I mean, it looks like a piano, and you look at this, it just looks beautiful, and I did that. So, next thing we'll get into is this bad boy right here, wood fiberglass. Just as much as this Bubinga maple is a one-off and a unique drum set that nobody else has one like, so is this one. This particular wrap is called Aquamarine abalone, and it's basically a pearl, and it is just absolutely beautiful. It looks like it's green sometimes it looks like it's blue. It depends on the lighting on it, but it's just very, very deep. And it's got some black overtones in there as well. Now this particular drum set that I got, again, I got it off of eBay, and I basically got a 5-piece set that was stripped. And I got pieces. And all it was the raw shells here for the bass drum, the 16, the 13, and the 12. The 12 and 13. I had to go find the 14, and then I also had to go find the 18. Now, all these were probably in storage sheds, and every single one of them, I think, was water damaged. They were stained on the inside. So in order to redo these, I basically sanded and filled all the different areas on the outside of the shell. The inside, thankfully, is fiberglass. The fiberglass shell was a unique add to the compression shell technology that Pearl had started off in the 70s. Now this is if you look at all these have the black badge with the gold, which means these are probably 70s. You see the newer mounts on there. I put the newer mounts on there, but that's okay. The other ones, the octagonals, were kind of giving me trouble. It's very hard to find those and very hard to find parts, so I couldn't find the Variset ones, and that's what I used. But these things were stained, so I had to paint them on the inside, and then I had to dress some of the bearing edges, which I really hate to mess with. Once you start playing with bearing edges, you can throw them out. You can have a dent or a depression in one area. They have to be absolutely flat all the way across. So I just basically rotated it rotated the drum with like 150 grit sandpaper, and just did that 12, 15 times, the whole drum set, both sides, and all the drums to dress the edges. This is a Luan shell, which means it's a mahogany compression shell. Now the compression shell is unique to Pearl, and one of the reasons why it maintains its longevity These things tend not to go out around as much as other bass drums from other manufacturers are, because the way it's put together, I'm going to show a little video on this, they actually put everything together. It's all glued layer by layer, or ply by ply. All the plies come to one point, and then they put them into a mold and then compress them, and then they cook them. They literally cook the glue into the wood. So that's why you can find these. This is why most people really love the old vintage pearls, because they're around. The wood is the old growth wood, and it is very well crafted.
You have to consider the shell construction and shell integrity. Let's take a closer look. All woods are not the same, and only the finest woods are good enough for Pearl's legendary tone. It begins with hand-selected woods chosen for their unique acoustic attributes, cosmetic properties, and precise moisture content. The wood is then milled to exact thicknesses. The seam is the key to shell integrity. Scarf joint seams are cut at each end, allowing the edges to overlap and bond over 800% more surface area than conventional butt joints. This provides extreme strength and integrity to the shell while simultaneously eliminating air pockets that can disrupt vibration. The secret ingredient to great sound is the glue. The wood plies are coated with our proprietary acoustic glue, which is formulated for each of the specific woods we use. This adhesive hardens within the mold to the same density as the wood it binds, allowing the shell to respond as if made from a single ply to provide superior tone and optimal resonance. We actually cook our shells to perfection. During shell formation, our hydraulic molds are heated to 212 degrees, and the glue is literally boiled into the pores of the wood to ensure a complete bond. Superior sound and shell vibration go hand in hand. While the acoustic glue boils, 1,000 pounds of pressure per square inch is applied to create the finest drum shell in the world. No other system uses this exact combination of heat and pressure to create a drum shell with such extreme strength. In front of you is our SST ad with a Hummer H1, almost 4 tons of truck with one wheel perched on a reference series tom. What you don't see in the ad are the other 6 drums, one from each series from Masters to Forum, that were subjected to this same crushing load, and every one survived without a scratch. We did this to demonstrate the superiority of our SST shell forming method. Our goal is to create the best sounding drums possible, and SST assures a perfect acoustic chamber for an amazing sound.
Most people like the jewel-like quality of the castings. These are all cast. These are not pressed. And these castings are very heavy duty. You can break them, of course, but they're absolutely beautiful if you keep the chrome on them. And the chrome is susceptible to moisture as well. So, but anyway, the wood and fiberglass, the unique thing about this is this has a unique punch. And Pearl recently started remaking or reissuing the wood fiberglass. They are a lot more forgiving on tuning, and they're punchy, and they got, as I said, they got a good voice. These all have different voices. I prefer the maple, if anything, but this one is fun. This particular set is probably one of my favorite refurbs, because what I got was bare naked shells. And what I ended up with, I replaced the metal with the metal hoops with maple, and then I also wrapped them in the same materials. So I got strips on these. Now these didn't come from Jam and Sam. The rest of it came from Jam and Sam for the fiberglass. But this particular one, I can't even remember where I ordered it, but I had to wait 6 months to get this stuff in. I was making calls and calls and calls, and then I had something that came out funny on one of my toms, and I had to rearrange the way I used it, but I called up for some more stuff, and they can't even match this stuff. See, basically, I got to order this in one sheet. There again, this is a one-off drum. This is a one-of-a-kind drum set. The unique thing about this drum set also is it's not completely Pearl. My concert toms, well, they're repurposed Hammers. So, and I'm okay with that. So it's all I could get at the time when, see, look how that blue comes out. It's just absolutely great when you look at it differently. They just pop out. So anyway, we got a 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 16, and an 18. And as I said, the voices are fun. If you look at some of the pictures I have, especially the driver's seat pictures, and just about any of these, you sat behind them, you know you're going to have a good time playing it. And that's the thing about it. That's why we do these. And again, our sickness continues. My sickness continues in a little bit, with this particular last one here. And this is there's another reason why I really like this particular kit. Now this last pearl kit is a fiberglass kit, and it ranges from the 80s and the 81, and the bass drum actually has the original red flash pearl wrap on it. I left the metal hoops on there. Haven't changed those out yet. Probably will change those eventually to maple as well. I think this kit has a phenomenal sound. I would love to hear it mic'd up. This particular one is that has a coated ambassador on the batter side, and then all these toms are toms that used to be owned or at least played by a guy named Larry London, a drummer who is a session drummer in Nashville. He played on a lot of albums. He backed a lot of people up on their tours and whatnot. And again, he was a very good drummer. He did all kinds of unique things. He had a 26-inch bass with loose floppy heads and a big old beater balls. You know, big. He was the first one to use the big 2-inch wood beater balls. He was the first one to get that big, huge bass drum sound. You know, I think he was one of the first ones to really start using gates and gated reverb on it. But these particular ones are historic in the Pearl catalog, and they were given to Larry London to try out, and they were the Extender series. Now the Extender toms, I'm going to show you a picture of a drum set here that Pearl had, and these things were unique. And what they did is they put these Extender platforms underneath the lugs, and they put a 1-inch larger head on this. And with that 1-inch larger head, you got more of a timpani kind of like overring on it. But the problem is because that head was being pulled down over the bearing edge, the bearing edge had to be a little bit different. These are almost a round top, and they're not a 45 to the outside. They're kind of, if you look at the crown is toward the center to the inside of the drum, and again, you can see that right on there. If you look at it, it's not, the top is not right next to the rim. And that's so they could pull this 1-inch larger head over there, and then you had to take a hair dryer or some kind of heater and heat up the head to deform it to fit. And it was a hassle. But it did give you a nice tom, open, resonant, vibrant sound. You could actually tune them lower. And but anyway, one of the issues is that with the 14, if you notice the 14 here, it has 8 lugs. So this is a rare bird, and having 8 lugs meant that well, you had to have 8 lugs in order to pull that head down that way without it canting weird with just 6 lugs. So they had 8 on that one and 8 also on the 15. Now I got the 16 and the bass drum off of eBay, of course, for dirt cheap. And then the wrap was from Jam & Sam's. It's just fire engine red, and it's got a good look to it. It needs cleaned up. But the unique thing about these toms here, they have a different sound. And the reason they have a different sound is because of that bearing edge. And I think they would be great mic'd up because they don't have a lot of, the sustain dies off pretty quickly. I mean, it's, you know, I need to tune them. But that's because of that bearing edge. So what I did is I put Evans hydraulics on there. And it is a lower voice kit, and it is also not muffled, but it doesn't have the sustain, so you can kind of let the resonance go. I don't really need any kind of mufflers or dampening on this because it's self-dampening, and it's just got a unique sound. Of course, got Pearl batter heads on there as well. So anyway, these are historic in the Pearl catalog. As I said, they were probably the forerunners to all that extender toms and drum sets they had in the early 80s. So it's kind of unique that they ended up with me. In fact, if you look on the inside of these, it says for Larry, January 81. So that's the amazing thing about all these Pearl drums. they last a long time. I think it's because of that compression shell technology. And that compression shell technology takes a lot of abuse. Well, I hit hard. I said earlier I used quantum 3000s. That's what I was hitting the toms on China Grove, if you go look at that video. And also I can't get cheap beaters. I really put my foot into it too. These things have stood up with that. And again, 1970s, early 80s, 1970s, middle 80s, later 80s, and they're still around. And they're tunable and they work. They're not rounded out by any way. But this is why you see some of us on like the Facebook Vintage Pearl Drummers Forum. You see that we're kind of obsessed about some of this stuff as well. It's because they're very good drums. Now, I've also got another drum set I'm going to show you in another video, how I made an electronic kit for cheap out of vintage Pearl drums. So that's it for this. If you like this video, there's going to be more. Later on, when I get back into my former playing form, I'm going to probably have a video on each one of these and show you the different voicings and the different sounds and what I do like and don't like about each one. There isn't much I don't like about these. It's one of the things when you put something together like this, it's kind of like, no, I'm not going to criticize it at all. It's fine, and I enjoy them. So anyway, it was nice to get these out of storage, look at them, and clean them up a little bit and share them with you. And hopefully in the future you can actually see what these sound like and see them all set up and in their full glory. If you want to see more, subscribe. We'll let you know what's going on. And if you really like something, go ahead and comment. Don't be nasty or anything. I'll take those out. If you're nasty on any of your comments, or you just basically start anything like, I don't want to hear anything about Stuart Copeland's bell brass snare, just don't do that. Okay? All right. Well, till later, keep drumming and farewell.